Hello, and welcome to Art with Miss Michelle. Today I'm going to show you how to make a Greek amphora, or ancient Greek pottery. Ancient Greeks used a lot of pottery for their food, to carry water, to store food, eat and drink out of, and many other uses. We're going to do paper mache today. Hopefully you'll have the materials at home. So the best thing to use is a balloon, but since I don't have a balloon, I'm going to use a produce bag, and I'm going to stuff it with some newspaper. I'm also going to use some small plates, a toilet paper roll. I'm going to need some masking tape and scissors, and then I need equal parts flour and water to make my paper mache. So I'm going to start out by making the basic shape that I want my pot to be. So a balloon is easiest because you can just blow it up to your desired size. But since I don't have one, I'm going to just try this bag. I think it'll work pretty well. So let's see, I might put another piece in. So I want it to have a nice round base. And I want to try to get it mostly even in here. I might just blow a little bit of air into this. Then I'll tie the top nice and tight. Okay, so that's going to make a good base. Then I'm going to add this toilet paper tube for the neck. This is a little bit too tall and skinny, so I think what I'm going to do is cut it in half and make it a bit wider. So I'm going to cut it in half, then I'm going to cut it open. And I'm going to take some short pieces of masking tape. Masking tape is really helpful because you can just make whatever shape you want before you start paper macheing it. So I want this to be about twice as wide, so I'm just going to connect the two sides, and I'm going to put my masking tape on the inside here and tape that together. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, kind of stretch it open. And that's going to give me the shape that I want for the neck of my pot. I'm going to make sure that's centered, and then I'm just going to use my masking tape to connect that together. So I'll probably need a couple pieces to hold it on really well. Oops. Okay, then I'm going to use my small plates to make the top piece, and I might put one down here for the bottom to give it a nice base. So for this part, I might just make a little tape ring and see if that'll hold it on. When I put the paper mache over, everything is going to get stuck together really well. So this just needs to be held together enough to make a form for me to paper mache over. And then this one, I'm just going to make a hole in the middle. And then I'll tape this on, and then I'll be just about ready to start with my paper mache. So don't be afraid to use too much masking tape. You can really put a lot on there to help you with your form. I'm doing just kind of a basic shape here, but in the past I've made a paper mache pig, and I taped a bunch of toilet paper tubes and newspaper and stuff together to get the shape of the ears and snout and everything. So tape away. Once you have your shape, you can mix your paper mache. So it's 1 part flour and 1 part water. So I'm going to put my flour in first. I'm going to put slightly less water in. Since we're in the Northwest in the springtime, it's pretty humid. So if I can get away with using slightly less water, it'll probably make this dry a bit faster. You can also put it next to a heater or somewhere where it's going to be nice and warm to help it along when it's ready to dry. And yep, I'm going to need more water. That's too thick. So I need it to be thin enough. What I'm going to do is rip my newspaper into strips and dip it in here. So I need it to be thin enough that I'll actually be able to dip my newspaper in. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's about the consistency of pancake batter, thick pancake batter. And I want to try to get my chunks of flour out, so I'm using a whisk. If you don't have a whisk, you can just use a spoon, or a fork sometimes helps get those chunks out. Okay. So now I'm going to take my newspaper and I'm going to rip it into strips. I don't want to make my strips too small because then I'm going to have a lot more work to do when I put them all on here. So actually, maybe if I cut these. Alright, then once I have a good amount of strips, I can start my paper mache. I'm probably going to need kind of a lot because this is a pretty big project. So I want to just get enough ready so I won't have to stop in the middle and make more, because my hands will be very dirty when I get started here. Okay. So now I have my strips and my paper mache already, and I've already covered my work surface so I won't make as big of a mess. And what I'm going to do is dip the pieces in my mixture here. I want to try to get them nice and coated, and then I'm going to take my fingers and wipe off the excess, and that should be just wet and sticky enough that I can start sticking it and wrapping it around. So when this newspaper gets pretty wet, it makes it pretty easy to form into shapes. It's a little bit thinner than regular paper, so it's a little easier to sculpt with. So I want to cover my whole project here, and I'm probably going to need more than 1 layer. So I'm putting it on, I'm going to overlap it a little bit too. And then I can kind of flatten the pieces out as I go along. And I'm going to want to put some extra pieces to strengthen my 2 pieces where they connect. So I'm going to start close to there, and then after I go around the whole thing, I'll come back at the end and put another layer on there too. And it doesn't so much matter the order, because everything is going to need to be covered, so you can just start pasting away. Okay, for the neck here, if I put it around this way, it's gonna be hard to bend with these bends here. So I'm gonna try putting it up and down like this. That way it's gonna hold on to this part, the tube, and the plate. And give it some extra strength there. So all three of those pieces will be held together. And if I need to, I can always make these a little bit thinner too. Oops. Maybe before I dip them in the paper mache. So I've put a lot of pieces on here. I've been doubling them up and overlapping them for added strength and support. My pot is a little bit lopsided, but I think I'm just gonna go with it because I used a bag and not a balloon, and this is where I'm at right now. So for this top part here, I should be able to work with this paper and get it to fold and do what I want pretty well so I can get the top shape here. So when this paper gets a little bit wet, it's pretty easy for me to fold it and smooth it out. So I'm just gonna go all the way around this plate and down into this hole that I made. And I have the paper folded, so if I just kind of go over it a few times with my fingers and smooth it out, I should be able to get a really good shape. So I'm just gonna go around the whole thing. Okay, so I have this thing pretty well covered. I think I'm gonna take one long strip and go around the neck of my pot here. And then if I want to try to make some handles for it, this is going to be pretty difficult, I think, but I'll give it a shot here. I'm going to take a big piece and kind of twist it up or roll it up. And I'm just going to dip this whole thing in my paper mache, try to get it pretty well covered. This is where you get really messy. Then I'm going to just kind of shape it into where I want it, and then I'll take some more pieces to attach it on the top and bottom. Oops. And I'm super sticky. So you might have noticed my hands got really sticky, and I just kind of used what was on my hands to rub some pieces on without dipping them in to try to get some off my hands. So I'm going to get some of my smaller pieces here and try to stick these on. And I'm probably going to want to use 2 or 3 layers for extra strength, because these pieces that are attached, they need a little bit of extra strength to hold them on. And you might be wondering why I didn't do this with a tape at first. You could try doing that. I just thought it would be easier to get all the pieces on without having this extra piece here, so I think it would work either way. Alright, and then if you want, you can try putting another handle on the other side too. And then once I have those stuck on, I'm going to take some more pieces and go around them. And that's going to give them some extra strength too. And make them be a little bit smoother, so when I paint it, I'll have a nice smooth surface to paint instead of my bumpy rolled up piece of paper. And I can definitely take my fingers, try to smooth this out as much as I can. Make sure my pieces overlap here. Okay, so as you can see, my pot is kind of slumping over to one side. I have all my paper on it. I'm ready to let this dry. I'm just going to try wadding up some paper and putting it underneath to try to even it out a little bit. I'm going to put it under here, so hopefully it won't stick to my pot. If you have a balloon, go with the balloon. Alright, so I'm going to let this dry and come back, check out my next video, and I'll show you how to paint it. So hopefully you will enjoy this and make a really cool amphora at home.